In this video we'll be demonstrating the renaming tool power application by 3D Solutions. We just have a generic job template opened up here as a starter. You can see everything is named, just generic names, DS1 for die steel 1 for example. No job numbers or any other associated numbers to the part that are on here. So we'll fire up the renaming tool. What the renaming tool does is it will bring up this initial form here. We have a few options. We'll start in the top left corner. We can, before the form initializes and pulls in the information, we have the option to select bill of material items or all items. The bill of material items will only pull in items that are clicked as visualized in the bill of material in CATIA. Next we have two parameters here that are modifiable. We have them set by default to our material and notes parameters, but if you had other parameters you wanted to bring in to be able to review or to modify, you can type them in here and get those. These are all also fully customizable. Last, we have a auto sort option here that you can select on. This will allow you the ability to automatically sort out purchased items versus made items. The GTD standard is something that's an optional thing that we do, but we select initialize form here, and what that's going to do is let you know that your assembly has to be in design mode, because if you make name changes, it's very important that the components are loaded. If they're not, it may not recognize the links when you do the changes, so it's going to automatically switch you to design mode if you're not already here. Once we do that, it's going to go ahead and propagate the form. You can see it pulls in all the information on the blocks: existing part number, new file name, detail number, quantity, description, material, and notes. These are customizable too. We can add as much as we need to this, but we'll just run through the general form right now. Once these are loaded in here, first thing we would want to do is apply our detail numbers to our blocks. If we have existing detail numbers, we can keep those by selecting the check boxes. Otherwise, we can apply detail numbers to all the steels here, starting with detail 1, or we can go to selected like this. And what we do when we go selected is, like if we wanted to start with the lower and do all the lower steels starting at detail 1, but we wanted to make a break at the upper and do the upper shoe and all its components starting at 500. So I'll go down and just select, shift and select everything that's in the lower. You see I'm stopping at the upper die shoe there. That's the first component in the upper. And I'm going to apply these detail numbers to the selected. So it does 2 through whatever we ended up here, 26. And now I want to start at the upper, and we'll go through all the upper components with the same concept, but we're going to start at 500 for the upper. And we'll apply those detail numbers. Once we have all the detail numbers applied to the steels, we can manually change these as well, or you can make as many different selections as you need to. Once those are all set though, next thing we want to do is look at how we're going to take and apply those detail numbers into the name of the steel. So right now everything's generic. So we'll come up here in the naming information. You have the opportunity to rename, replace something that's existing in the file names or part numbers, or add new things to them. We're going to start off with just renaming. We can choose to do the part number, the file name, or both. We typically like to do both, but sometimes clients will have a requirement for the file name to be different than the actual part number in the tree. So we're going to rename both, though, and we're going to put in a job number here, and we'll go job number 4455, and then we can select the separator, whether we want a dash, an underscore, or a period. We'll just leave that at a dash, and then we're going to do the detail number. So this will result in job number dash detail number. When we apply this, you can see we have apply changes to cat parts, cat products, or components. So these are set up individually to do your parts, your assemblies, and your component files. So we're going to just start with the cat parts. We're going to do all of them, not just selected. And we're applying it to both. So when we hit apply here, you can see it changes the names and the file names all right here in the tree. Now nothing has happened out here in the assembly yet. You have the opportunity to go in and tweak and adjust this as you need to before you actually apply and update the 3D models. But once we have these set down here, we might come down here and in the current design number, if you don't put the job number with each one, you may want to just put it on this first one, and it lets you know if you make any changes to assemblies that have drawings linked to them, you need to have the drawings open while you do it. Because if you don't, it will lose the link to the drawing file because the name changes. But we can change these two here in the main assembly, and we'll just let the rest of them be generic for now. But we could apply these same types of changes, adding a job number before or adding a job number after any of these components. If we were going to do replacing, we come in here and we can find a particular string and replace it with another string, and you have the option to do that in part number, file name, and you also have param1 and param2 here. This is really nice because if you have, say, a material change and they want to go from A2 for all the trim steels to S7, we can select that param1, which is material, and we can change all these features that are A2 currently to S7. So if we wanted to actually do that, we can say, let's go into param1 and change everything that's currently A2, and we want to make it S7. So we don't want to do the part number, just param1, so make sure you only have checked what you need to. Apply to all the cat parts. We apply that, you can see it just changed all the trim steel materials to S7. What's nice with this renaming tool is it's actually more of a job finishing tool because it will actually allow you to push that value back into the block and change the parameter value in the blocks. So you can work both ways where you read the data in here, but you can also push it back into the block as well. So with those changes set in there, we have everything renamed here. We have a material change done there. If we wanted to add anything into the part number or the file name, say for example, we wanted to do a new text and we wanted to add on the front of this D01, maybe it's a program number and a dash. If we want to do that to both the file name and the part number, we can do an add before. Say if we forgot to do it when we did the rename, we can go in and do that add before, and you can see that applied that to all those as well. So we'll leave it at that. You can play around with this a little bit. I suggest playing around in a sample assembly first as you get to know the renaming tool. It's very helpful to do that. The other thing I would suggest too is before you ever rename a job, we always recommend that you go in and you actually do a 7-zip or a backup of that job prior to doing the rename. It's always a good idea to do that. It just covers your hind end a little bit with those types of things. So once all that's changed, one other thing too you want to catch up here is you can put the job number in here as well. That will apply into the job number parameter in the blocks, even if it's not shown here. So we'll add that in. Last thing I want to mention before we move down to the lower portion of the form is you can select Do Not Remove Table Associations here. Anytime we change a material or a note, for example, or any parameter that's attached to a table, there's no guarantee that the value exists in the table. So what it does is it actually goes in and deactivates the table and then changes the value. If you want to make sure that the value exists in the table and that somebody can't change it, you can select this Do Not Remove Table Associations, and what it will do is it will attempt to change it to that value if it exists in the table, and if it doesn't, then it won't. So we'll let it go ahead and remove them for right now. It's not a problem on this particular application. Last thing we want to do before we update the models is take a look at these options down at the bottom. This is where we have an opportunity to add the detail number into the instance name, which is in your parentheses out here in your file name. We do this often because we can use that instance name then to balloon the job if they happen to have 2D prints. And it's also easy just to get a quick glance at something and see just the detail number instead of seeing that long string of characters there. So we'll add that into the instance name. When you click that, it's going to say, do you want to add the detail in the instance to all items or only those that have been changed? We always select yes for all. The only time you would select no is if you had already renamed a job and you were going back in and you added a couple blocks. Then you would select no, because then what it would do is only add the changed instance name to the new items, not to the existing ones. But on the first run through, you always pick yes here. The next option here is move old files to an obsolete folder. What this allows you to do is this actually allows you to go in and it will clean up your directory for you. So all these DS1, DS2, DS3 cat parts that exist in the file folder currently will actually get copied and moved into an obsolete folder, and the newly named parts will get saved into the file. So it makes it real easy to clean up after you're done renaming. So we'll check that. And then the last option here is add detail number in a definition field. I'm going to select this just to show you how it works, but this is typically only used if you're exporting to, say, to SolidWorks. The definition field in CATIA is what translates over as the part number in SolidWorks. So if we wanted to add the detail number in the definition field, we can go in and put the job number first as a prefix. It gives you an option to put a prefix on it. And then it says, do you want to add the param2 value at the end, which is our notes parameter. Some customers would like to have it where it says job number, detail number, and then the notes describing what the component is. This particular one we won't do that, but you do have that option. Once those are all set, the next thing we do is we just pop down here at the bottom and we'll select Update 3D Models. While this is updating, I'll let you view on the screen. You'll see the parts as they start changing down through here as the renaming process begins. We'll just go ahead and select that now. If you keep an eye on the screen there, you'll see some of that going as it gets down into those areas of the assembly that are expanded in the tree there. And this is actually renaming the files, renaming the instances, saving the files off as the proper name, maintaining all the linking through the entire job. So we're going through this job, and you can see it doesn't take too terribly long. The process is actually pretty quick. When it gets done, it's going to come up and let us know that the updates are complete, and it's also going to let us know that it's moving all the obsolete old files, the cat parts and cat products, into the obsolete folder. And that way it makes for easy cleanup for you when you're done with this. So we'll go ahead and let this run here a moment. As soon as it's done, I'll pop back on. Okay, you can see we're back here. That just took about 15 more seconds from when I paused it there. We got the updates are complete warning here. The next thing that's going to let you know is all the files are going to be moved to this particular location. It by default will always put them in the job directory that you have, and it will create a new folder called Obsolete Renamed Files inside that job directory, and that's where it will move all those items. So once that's done, you take a look out here in the tree, you can see all our files are named properly. One of the interesting things, we'll expand one of these die steels here and take a look. I just want you to see the material type now is S7, like the change that we applied in there, so you can see that that's going both directions. The detail number is filled out, job number is filled out, file name is saved. If we look at the properties here, we can see it's saved off as the correct file name in that directory now. So makes renaming go very quickly, gives you a lot of flexibility for different customer requirements. And then when you're all complete with this, you can export your bill of material right out here. So if we select on our export bill of material, this will give us an opportunity to save this out to a directory. We can just go here, we'll go back to our desktop, and I'll throw it right in the temporary folder that I'm putting everything else in here. And you can see already we have that obsolete renamed folders in there now. So we'll save that out. It'll pop up and let you know the export's complete. We just hit OK there. And the next thing I'll do is I'll pull up that actual directory, and we'll take a look at what our results would be in your file system. So we come down here, we have our temp folder. You can see we have all our files renamed to the proper part numbers and names. You have an obsolete renamed file which has all the old files in it. The reason we put those into an obsolete renamed file folder as opposed to just deleting them, if you had a system crash in the middle of a rename, if you had any other issues like that, you want to still be able to get access to those files. But in the event that worst case scenario happens, that's why we do always recommend you do a zip file of the original prior to doing the renaming on it, just to make sure you got everything covered. So here's our bill of material that we just created. We'll pop that open, we'll take a look at this, and you can see we have our detail numbers, our quantities, materials, descriptions. You can see all our trim steels here are S7, and going right on down the line. So this will create your bill of material, and the export of this can be customized to match your format. If you have something different than what you see here, that's no problem at all. So that concludes the video on how to use the renaming tool. A very powerful tool. I think you'll find it very helpful.